message. We're going to continue on in chapter 17 with a section that is really profound once you begin to understand it. It's called setting the goal. So let me frame it for a moment. The Holy Spirit has a purpose for your every day, really for your every hour. She has a plan and a purpose of how to help move you forward on the spiritual journey. And her purpose follows the laws of spirit, of true cause and effect. It's a spiritual purpose. It's a goal of holy relationships that's set for you. And our faith must grow to rise to those levels of the goal that she set for us. So the goal's already been set. It's the same goal for everybody, is to have a holy encounter with everyone and in a loving way. So the goal's been set, and the question then really comes back to us, is will we allow our faith to rise to those moments, to those opportunities? Welcome to Miracles on High Plains. I'm your host, Jonaca, and today our reader is David S.
The practical application of the Holy Spirit's purpose is extremely simple, but it is unequivocal. In fact, in order to be simple, it must be unequivocal. The simple is merely what is easily understood, and for this, it is apparent that it must be clear. The setting of the Holy Spirit's goal is general. Now, he will work with you to make it specific, for application is specific. There are certain very specific guidelines he provides for any situation. But remember that you do not yet realize their universal application. Therefore, it is essential at this point to use them in each situation separately until you can more safely look beyond each situation in an understanding far broader than you now possess.
Mm-hmm. So as always, orienting in this first paragraph is the beginning is important. We kind of have to sync up with this level of insight, of understanding. So we are talking about a purpose given to us by creation, the Holy Spirit's purpose. And if it was so complex nobody could understand it, it wouldn't be useful. And so it's a very simple purpose. Even young children can grasp it. Even someone who's doesn't know how to read or write is capable of grasping what it's like to feel loved. So it's a simple purpose, and therefore it's easy to understand. It's about your relationships with others, whether they are physically present with you or not. It's the way you regard them. Is your heart and soul open to them when they cross your mind? And so in this, so the Holy Spirit has this goal of making these relationships loving. And there are certain very specific guidelines that the Holy Spirit will provide for any situation. I will summarize the guidelines at the end of our reading, but I invite you to take note and call out the guidelines as you see them along the way, to read carefully. What are the specific guidelines that are being given? Now, there's one thing you have to understand about these guidelines is that they are for everyone, everywhere, always. So they're very general guidelines. However, you and I think of them in terms of our very specific situation. So if you have a friend who you haven't been talking to for 3 weeks because you had an outing, you'll think of the guidelines as applying to that situation, and it does, but the guidelines also apply to everybody in every situation. And eventually, after you've used these guidelines enough, you shift from viewing them only applying in little ways to viewing the guidelines as universal and applying everywhere. That's the ultimate outcome. You generalize the guidelines of how the Holy Spirit can use a situation to achieve this goal as applying anywhere and always. So did anybody notice the first guideline? Again, it requires reading carefully.
We're all equal.
Okay, so that, yeah, that would be part of it. It is essential at this point you use them in each situation. In other words, you need to practice. These are the Holy Spirit is downloading a plan for loving relationships. How are you going to raise your faith up to that level? It's essential you practice and use them in situations. And that situation can be really, you can go down to the store and go shopping for a few groceries. There's a situation waiting for you. So it's essential you use the guidelines in each situation until you realize that it applies everywhere. So, and there'll be additional guidelines. We'll take them one by one as we go on. Heather, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say that's what Susie was doing when she said it's becoming easier. It's becoming natural because she's been practicing it. So it just becomes the natural state, and that's just naturally what you do in all situations.
Yes.
It's a good example of how it becoming easier.
Yes. And thank you, Heather. And yes, that's why it becomes simple, because after you practice it enough, it's just the way you live your life. It's not like you come in with this elaborate plan. It's just, this is the way I am now. I prefer to live my life peacefully and look for opportunities to relate to people in loving ways. The opposite way is uncomfortable for me. So it's simple and easily understood with practice.
And there's no message that's more important right now in everything in the turmoil and the war. That when somebody, after they want to engage, you say, no, I choose peace instead of this. Wow, what an answer to everything.
It is. Okay, so this will all become more clear as we go on. David?
In any situation in which you are uncertain, the first thing to consider very simply is, what do I want to come of this? What is it for? The clarification of the goal belongs at the beginning, for it is this which will determine the outcome. In the ego's procedure, this is reversed. The situation becomes the determiner of the outcome, which can be anything. The reason for this disorganized approach is evident. The ego does not know what it wants to come of the situation. It is aware of what it does not want, but only that. It has no positive goal at all.
Mm-hmm. To me, this is so plain and matter of fact, because I live so much of my life by it. So a situation arises, maybe somebody invites me over for dinner. And, okay, so we'll go to dinner. I don't really know what I want to become of this situation? See, is it about food? Is it about being with these people? I don't really know. So there's an ego approach, which is we'll figure it out later on by grading the situation. Do we like the food? Do we like the people? Do we have a good time? And then we'll judge whether or not it was worthwhile our while. That would be the ego way. The reversal of this is why it needs practice, because it's so different, is before the situation arises, you pause to ask, what is my intention? What do I want to become of this? I'm going to see some people who I haven't seen for a while, and there'll be some other people there that I don't know. What do I want to come of this situation? And as we learn, you're going to align this with the Holy Spirit's goal for holy relationships. In other words, it's not a random answer to this question, what do I want? Is what do I and the Holy Spirit together want to become of this situation? So, specific guidelines, ask before you enter into the situation. Susie?
Yeah, this is really cool because you know how we talk about, I say sometimes like, oh, I went to the UPS store to, mail my package and that happened, right? But so it happens sometimes. And it's just exactly what Heather just said, how, our thinking just becomes a certain way over time when we practice it and, and it just becomes natural. So this is what it's saying, like, it's telling us exactly what to do, to ask before we go, instead of like going with the ego, how I most of the time go and do something. I don't even ask. I don't even think about it, just like you said, and then I'll grade it in my mind. And this is wonderful because I can really apply this to to real experiences that have happened to me and said, wow, if I did this actually before I went, I might have many more holy encounters like I had at the UPS store. Who knows? Right. This is amazing. And then, like Heather says, it just becomes a natural way of being.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you.
Think about it. By asking ahead of time, you might have many more holy encounters because that was your intention. Heather?
Yeah, just adding one word just creates it, really makes it simple. What is it this situation really for? What's real in the situation? If I say what's really for, now my eyes are open to a whole another level of occurrences.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Will?
Hi, everybody. I'm kind of struggling with this word goal because I was thinking about the way that I live my life, and I don't necessarily feel like I have goals that often. Maybe this is applying to those situations where it's appropriate to have a goal, but for me, it's kind of I accept what it is and deal with it on its terms. And so usually there's not a goal involved unless I'm having a meeting with somebody about a network or business opportunity, or maybe I'm trying to resolve an issue with somebody that I think needs to be brought to the surface and talked about.
Right.
And maybe that's really what this is referring to.
So Bill, there's in this context, it's the Holy Spirit's goal for everyone to attain loving relationships with one another. So it's a universal plan for all time and creation, a goal to move us from whatever level we're at to a level of holy relationships with one another. And it involves a series of steps and faith and guidelines here, but it's not an earthly, time-bound, self-centered goal in the sense that we're all familiar with, but a goal for all of creation. So we're, as is often the case in A Course in Miracles, every term is redefined in a new context. So now goals, the way we used to think of them, are now redefined as a goal for the entire sonship, a goal for eternity. Noel?
Those two questions at the top, what do I want to come of this? Very often, I call it setting my intention. So that, let's say I want harmony to come from this. I see a loving exchange. Sometimes it's something that I want otherwise, but the second question, as Susie says so often, we don't know what anything is for. So
Right.
what I think it's for may not be, you know, the potatoes in the supermarket thing. So I guess what is it for might be, I ask the Holy Spirit what it really is for.
Yes,
know.
we don't know.
And
what
we
it's
don't
for.
know until we go through the situation. I'm so sorry but you know that's my favorite lesson. It's for butting in. Like we don't know until we get there, right? Like I wouldn't know until I was
Yeah,
at the UPS store what it was for.
or even until I think about it afterwards. You know, I had a similar situation that the other day, and I'd rather not go into it now, maybe later, but I kept thinking of you that way. And it certainly was for something very different from what I had originally thought.
Yeah. So part of all this reorientation towards the Holy Spirit's loving goal is about faith and trust, that she has a plan, but that you have not yet received the details of what's going to happen tomorrow, or even if there's anybody here that knows exactly what's going to happen today, I'd really be privileged if you tell me how you know these things, because I think it's all unfolding in real time. But the Holy Spirit has this plan, and we're going to trust that she knows what it's for. And the question is, are you willing to align your faith with her plan? Sandra?
Yeah, the intention and the plan and Spirit's plan is for the atonement, is to know my oneness with all of creation and my creator and with myself. So that's the intention. There's only one intention, is the atonement. And if I set that intention that, you know, on a daily basis, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say and to whom? Then I'm you know, and then I just have to trust that what's coming through me is what I intended. And if it isn't, I'll know it. And then I have to make a correction.
There you go. See how simple that is? Sandra's got the formula here. Just ask. Susie?
You know what what I love about this is in the introduction, it says, you know, it's an individualized curriculum. And I love here, you know, in the first paragraph or second, whatever, when he says he will work with you and make it specific. You know, it's specific to what my healing needs. You know, so many times I'll be talking to David and I'll say, you know, like what's coming up for me is so different than what's coming up for him. Lessons that God would have us learn, right? Like, and I just think that's so cool that the Holy Spirit meets us where we're at. and, you know, gives us an opportunity to heal something in us or whatever that's, I'll just speak for me, that's still in my ancient prison, that still is, you know, it's like your breakthrough yesterday, Jonaca, with, you know, it's like you get what you need. You know, we get what we need. And I love that the Holy Spirit, wow, she's capable of billions of people. Anyway, it's so congruent, is that the word, you know, with the introduction, that
Yeah.
it's, you know, yeah.
And not only is it specific to what you need at that time and in a format that you can understand, but as we will find out shortly, it involves others as well in ways that you could never plan. David?
Without a clear-cut positive goal set at the outset, the situation just seems to happen and makes no sense until it has already happened. Then you look back at it and try to piece together what it must have meant, and you will be wrong. Not only is your judgment in the past, but you have no idea what should happen. No goal was set with which to bring the means in line. And now the only judgment left to make is whether or not the ego likes it. Is it acceptable, or does it call for vengeance? The absence of a criterion for outcome set in advance makes understanding doubtful and evaluation impossible.
So the opposite of not having a goal inevitably leads you to make a judgment. Did I enjoy myself? Did I have a good time? Did I come through this all right? Some kind of judgment of whether what the past was acceptable to you or not. We can do better than that. The Holy Spirit's goal for us is more aspirational than did you like what happened. It involves the healing of relationships, of your own healing and the healing of everyone else involved in it. So you don't need to know the details of what will happen in any situation, but you do get to decide who will be your guiding light in any situation. In the absence of that, you just wander around pretty much random without any plan whatsoever. David?
The value of deciding in advance what you want to happen is simply that you will perceive the situation as a means to make it happen. You will therefore make every effort to overlook what interferes with the accomplishment of your objective and concentrate on everything that helps you meet it. It is quite noticeable that this approach has brought you closer to the Holy Spirit's sorting out of truth and falsity. The true becomes what can be used to meet the goal. The false becomes the useless from this point of view. The situation now has meaning, but only because the goal has made it meaningful.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps an example might be helpful here. This is true story. So I was invited over to a gathering where I knew the host of her house. I knew her, but I really didn't know many of the other people. So I was ambivalent because I don't know anybody there about going. But I decided to get myself out, and but I set ahead of time an intention to have at least one conversation that was really meaningful to me, that was really one that that I felt moved by. That was my intention. And so now I show up there, and of course it's just a meeting in a house. You know how people gather around the kitchen a lot and everything, and people are talking. But now I have an intentionality, and I'm concentrating on everything that would help to meet that goal. And so it alters the way I show up. I'm looking to meet someone, to say something, and I have no idea who that person is or what will be said. I'm not talking about romance here. I'm talking about a soul to soul connection. And that's so the situation now has taken on a purpose. And of course, there's a lot of other things that go on that are not particularly memorable. And my mind just doesn't attend to much of that. You know, how is the food? How are the people dressed? Do I remember their names? Okay, whatever. Not particularly concerned, but the situation now has meaning because I've given it this goal. And then all of a sudden, I find myself talking to someone that I've never met before about something I'm really interested in. And they're willing to share with me their experience. I believe this was their experience when they were at the Taj Mahal in India. And it was a profound experience for them. And like I was glued to every word they said. And I walked away from that encounter really feeling inspired because of that one encounter. The situation has meaning because the goal has made it meaningful. And so try not to limit it to my example. Susie would say, I was just delivering a package to UPS. But all of a sudden, there was a situation with people in the room that became meaningful. And there was a connection and an appreciation. You know, the framing of the situation we have learned does not matter. It's the content inside, the soul to soul connection that matters.
The goal of truth, excuse me, the goal of truth has further practical advantages. If the situation is used for truth and sanity, its outcome must be peace. And this is quite apart from what the outcome is. If peace is the condition of truth and sanity and cannot be without them, where peace is, they must be. Truth comes of itself. If you experience peace, it is because the truth has come to you, and you will see the outcome truly, for deception cannot prevail against you. You will recognize the outcome because you are at peace. Here again, you see the opposite of the ego's way of looking, for the ego believes the situation brings the experience. The Holy Spirit knows that the situation is as the goal determines it and is experienced according to the goal.
Mm-hmm. There are two things mentioned in this that might be easy to miss. So I want to dwell on them for a moment. One, spoken about in the first half, is how it feels to be in the midst of this situation where your intentions and the Holy Spirit, where it unfolds in front of you. A holy instant is felt. You feel it. It may or may not have a lot of ideas or verbal there, but you feel it. It's a sense of peace that comes with you. You're totally accepting of this encounter. It feels good. I don't know, there's probably elaborate vocabulary words. That's not the point of describing it. But if you pay attention, you feel it. It touches your soul. So that is your confirmation. And I would state that of all the ways for you to know what is true, that hang on to that one. Pay attention to the way your soul responds to the situation. You'll know that this has meaning and is rich. So that's one part that we want to make sure we don't miss when we're in the midst of it, that you feel it. You noticed how it feels. The other one is more cognitive or more about a set of ideas that has to do with the laws of cause and effect, a cause and an outcome, a result. So the ego, so let's go over the two ways of understanding cause and effect, the ego way and the spirit way. The ego teaches that in a situation, we're talking about your tomorrow, a situation you encounter tomorrow, that you show up and then figure out what it's all about while you're there. That the situation, the circumstances of the situation, the details will determine what your experience is like. So that's to say, to put it in terms of the picture and the frame, that the framing of the situation, for instance, in a holiday, a holiday party, wherever it might be, everybody might get all dressed up. And it's very, very fine to put out all the lights and the fine materials, and everybody is dressed well, and the food's very good. The pay attention to the outer trappings is what the ego is preoccupied with, and that'll determine what kind of experience you have. Holy Spirit has an exact inversion of that and say none of that really matters. All those clothes and food and light is not going to change your soul in any way. It's not going to further the progress of your soul. The Holy Spirit says that the goal that she has set for you to have holy relationships, and your decision in advance to open yourself and join with her, cooperate with her in that goal, that's what determines the experience. Okay, so these are very simple to understand, but very different from the way things many of us lived our lives up till now. David, you had your hand up.
I do, and I hope this is not too trite, but there's a couple of people on this class that I have played golf with. And one of my big comments always is, golf mirrors life. And it's a microcosm of everything. And when I go out to play golf, my ego sets a certain goal, and it involves how many strokes am I going to have? Where am I going to hit it? Where is this going to happen? It has all these things there's a scorecard that measures them. And my true self, my higher self, is that I'm going to go out. We're going to spread peace and love amongst each other in a beautiful setting, a bucolic setting where there is no reason for any kind of lack of peace. All lack of peace is what the ego brings to the game. And it makes the experience completely different. And I'm just getting this from reading this. It's me so obvious about changing my intention in, quote, the game of golf, which mirrors the game of life. And the other thing I was going to say, you know, I'm old now from a lifespan concept. And so I'm not in as big a hurry as I used to be. I don't have all these goals that I have to accomplish before a certain time, or I don't have time for that. I'm too busy pursuing these ego goals. And one of the things I recognize in this course as I look at the participants, we're people that are now taking a different look at the time and the rest of our time that we're granted here to pursue atonement, pursue the truth, and the real meaningful goals. That's it. I'm complete.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Susie?
Can I ask David a question? David, do you think it's because you're chronologically consider yourself old, or because you think you're healing, that you have that things have changed for you?
I think it's a combination of both. They each have helped deal with both of those relative circumstances.
And then I just wanted to say I'm really excited to go out and play with that new person.
Great. You guys are a hoot. All right. So very different approaches. I'll call it the old way, ego way, and the guidelines that the Holy Spirit is giving us.
The goal of truth requires faith. Faith is implicit in the acceptance of the Holy Spirit's purpose, and this faith is all-inclusive. Where the goal of truth is set, there faith must be. The Holy Spirit sees the situation as a whole. The goal establishes the fact that everyone involved in it will play his part in its accomplishment. This is inevitable. No one will fail in anything. This seems to ask for faith beyond you and beyond what you can give. Yet this is so only from the viewpoint of the ego. For the ego believes in solving conflict through fragmentation and does not perceive the situation as a whole. Therefore, it seeks to split off segments of the situation and deal with them separately, for it has faith in separation and not in wholeness.
So I want to come back to when Will earlier was talking about goal setting in what would be the classic traditional sense that many of us have gone. I've gone to workshops about goal setting and all, particularly in business or whatever way, how to make a better life and set a goal. In that context, they were usually self-oriented goals, the things that would benefit me, the things that I would like to see come about. And then when we get together in a group, many times those goals may have been harmonious with the other people's goals or may have been different with the other people's goals. So it was, but the source of the goal comes from myself. Now, in contrast, the Holy Spirit's goal is for truth, involves everyone in the goal. This is a macro thinking now. Everyone's involved. And so you or I can't work out those details about how everyone would be affected in advance by a situation, but the Holy Spirit can. And so the essential ingredient to shift from self-oriented goals to the Holy Spirit's goal is your faith and trust in the Holy Spirit to manage this situation for the benefit of everyone. And this is where I made reference to it a little bit earlier when Susie was sharing about entering into a situation where you dedicate it to your healing, which is a good thing. But the Holy Spirit also has in mind the healing needs of everyone else. And there's a trust here. I don't know if it's mentioned here. Everyone involved will play his part in its accomplishment. And some people might read that as some kind of magic. How is it that these other people are going to play their part? In my example, going to a dinner party and having that important conversation, how is it that the other person was going to play their part? Well, we don't know how that works, and we're not asked to figure it out. We're just asked to apply our faith and trust. That's our part. Faith and trust that the others who you might need their participation to bring a holy relationship, by definition, involves the participation by another. You just trust that Holy Spirit will identify the person who's ready and form an opportunity for you to connect together. Ego does not think this way. Ego thinks it's all up to me to make it happen. Sandra?
I'm not sure now because of that last statement that you just said, if what I have to say fits with that. But in the lessons that we're reading right now, and it's under the topic of what is a miracle, it asks how many teachers of God are necessary to reach the atonement. And it says only one. And that's why, having that goal, for me personally to have that goal, affects everybody. For me to personally have a goal to extend God's love onto this planet, to stop judging, and to have the atonement be my goal, have unity be my goal. It's like I'm making my contribution to creating a whole new earth, a whole new heaven and earth. And so, I don't know that I'm going to be the one, and I'm not in competition, like I got to get there first, but I'm going to play my part because it only takes one.
There you go. You play your part. And trust Holy Spirit's got understanding, a plan for engaging others when they're ready. And that's her part, is to bring the others to you when they're ready. Our part is to be ready for those in that moment. Heather?
I just had the beautiful image when Sandra said that of it's a choir. We all play our part. I mean, if we keep our eye on the maestro, they'll tell us when to come in and when to do our part and then when to stop your part and when it's going to be somebody else's part. But we're all singing the song together. It's the ancient song. That was beautiful, Sandra. Thank you.
That's really powerful. I want to find an image that conveys all that. That's beautiful. Thank you, Heather. Will?
Well, David, I have to use golf as a metaphor, and I think it is a great metaphor. And what I'm referring to is I'll often go out and play with people, and they'll be totally unaware of the beauty that's surrounding them on a golf course. They'll be thinking about the next shot. They'll be thinking about how close they're going to get to the pin, but they don't take a moment to stand there and reflect on the beauty that's around them and the miracle it is of being in that place at that moment and the opportunity to experience all that. Where for the most part, most of the people that I play with are only thinking about the goal and not thinking about where they are and how beautiful it is.
Yeah. Take time to smell the roses. Jerry, did you have a comment? You're muted, though.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. So I'm interested in this. When David was talking about the golf course and being out there playing golf, and what goes through his mind, I was thinking about going to a restaurant and having a good meal in the same context. And that's maybe the ego is speaking, but I find that, and I don't know if Julie's on. Julie, are you there today? No.
He is still connected.
Okay. Julie and I have had numerous deep discussions over a good meal in a restaurant. So, and the goal I find when I go out with Julie for something special, whether it's breakfast or dinner or whatever, but usually it's around food. I get an incredible amount in talking to Julie with respect to insight of life as she sees it, and hopefully she gets something from me as well. And it's a wonderful, peaceful experience that I have after talking to her. I think we have some similarities in our life's history that increases those connections. And when we part and each go our separate way, my life is so much more peaceful, and I'm so receptive to other people and other things that are happening. It's just a wonderful feeling. Thank you, Julie, if you're there. Because she's sleeping.
Yeah, I don't know if she's available, and but she's on the connection. Since we're talking about Julie, I just want to say I've met with Julie not in wonderful restaurants like Jerry, but we talk over Zoom, and I have always benefited from her wisdom, her insights, her perspectives.
Yeah.
If you haven't spoken to her offline, you're missing an opportunity there.
That's been God's gift, one of God's gifts to me, I'll tell you for sure.
There you go. Thank you, Jerry. That was a wonderful testimony. Okay, where were we? So those are holy encounters, and Jerry just said, I can feel that I was touched by those encounters. I know that that is meaningful there. So that is the testimony we get. So circling back one more time, just to summarize what we just saw, the Holy Spirit is very interested in your healing and is also interested in the healing of everybody else involved in the situation. She sees it in terms of the macro picture, not only the people that are immediately there, but the people that are in their lives that are not present. She sees the big picture as a whole. And so everyone involved, sometimes you don't know, but you have an encounter with someone that is meaningful and touching, and then they go home and share it with their teenager in a way that has meaningful impact to them. and you might never have known. But the Holy Spirit is aware of when people are ready for these transforming experiences, these moments. The healing of any one relationship embodies the healing of the whole. Okay, we'll go on.
Confronted with any aspect of the situation that seems to be difficult, the ego will attempt to take this aspect elsewhere and resolve it there. And it will seem to be successful, except that this attempt conflicts with unity and must obscure the goal of truth. And peace will not be experienced except in fantasy. Truth has not come because faith has been denied, being withheld from where it rightfully belonged. Thus do you lose the understanding of the situation the goal of truth would bring. For fantasy solutions bring but the illusion of experience, and the illusion of peace is not the condition in which truth can enter.
So this is about what the ego does with the situation. It tries to fragment a situation so it's no longer a part of the goal of truth. It's a part of a separate agenda, and then manipulates it into trying to assign to it something that is basically an illusion. So where do we go from here? We're going to do a quick summary, and then there's a couple paragraphs in the next section that build directly upon what we've been reading today. So we're going to do a few paragraphs there. We said that there were specific guidelines that the Holy Spirit provides for each situation. And what are those guidelines? They're simple, easy to understand, very specific, but you have to practice them. It's essential to use the guidelines in each situation until you learn, until it becomes your new normal, your new default mode. And then you do it effortlessly. What are some of how's that done? In any uncertain situation, first thing is always to ask, what is this situation I'm about to enter for? You can even ask this question when you arrive there at the situation. You walk in the door, what is this for? I don't know what it's for, but I know the Holy Spirit does, and I'm willing to allow my faith to rise to meet her in a plan that is whose details she understands. So clarify the goal. I'm willing to work with the Holy Spirit. And then things become easier because you can overlook anything that interferes with that goal and concentrate on everything that helps you meet it. So that gives you a sense of prioritization. If it's interference, I'm not going to focus on it. If it furthers the goal, I'm going to concentrate on that. And so that is the fundamental thing the Holy Spirit is here to do, is help you recognize what is unimportant. Illusions are unimportant, not to become distracted by them, not to get yourself emotionally and mentally all worked up about illusions, and instead concentrate on what matters, the healing and helpfulness of relationships. As a result, oh, by the way, this impacts your happiness. That beautiful testimony Jerry just had is an example. The situation now has meaning. It was more than just a dinner and food. It was touched your soul. There was a richness to it that makes life meaningful. That's what brings happiness. Now, the food is nice. We're not criticizing nice food, nice restaurants, but a month later, the food's forgotten, but the soul's being touched lasts forever. And then another specific guideline, perhaps not the final one, but these are the ones I was able to capture, is your faith. This is really about a journey in faith and trust. And we want to acknowledge that we may not have yet maximized our faith, that our faith may need some additional elevation. And so this is about vigilance and commitment. Have faith in accepting the Holy Spirit's purpose. That faith should include not only yourself and your role in the healing, but also that the others involved will play their part so that everyone can benefit. This is good. What's good for one will be good for all. So the bottom line here is it's your faith journey, and be willing to apply your faith, to rally your faith to each opportunity. Susie?
You know what I really also find so incredibly useful here? You know, it says in the text or, you know, wherever that, you know, we've allowed our minds to wander too much. And, you know, so many times I've left an evening, you know, or whatever, and I'm like, I wasn't even really that present. Like, you know, oh, wow, like I didn't even pray once or think of the Holy Spirit once, you know, I'm very aware of that. And now this is helping me to say, to give myself an opportunity and everybody else around me, like you're saying, to think before I even go. And it will allow me to be way more present where only the miracle can occur anyway. So yeah, this is really, really, really helpful. And if I can make this a habit, you know, then it becomes, as we were talking in the beginning, a natural way of being. Instead of going into a situation all mind wandering with the ego as my person, you know, my
Your guide.
yeah. It's really, really great. Really, really great. And I love what Jerry said because, and what you said, like, yeah, the food can be great, but that's not the primary experience. And then when he said he's in such a great mood afterwards, it reminded me of what you said. And then you go home or you encounter somebody else and you're in a way more different space, and you're able to spread that love to somebody else. It's really also powerful. It's great. It's helpful. I'm going out to dinner tonight, and and but it's truthfully though, like, what is it for? If I ask that before I go, I bet I'll have a different experience.
That's the guarantee. That's the way the Holy Spirit works. All right, so because these next few paragraphs in the next section seem to be so relate to what we just read, we're going to spend a few more minutes going over that, because it's still talking about how your faith in these situations is the key variable there. The situation is going to happen either way. The Holy Spirit's plan is always there. Question is your faith being applied to the situation? David?
The substitutes for aspects of the situation are the witnesses to your lack of faith. They demonstrate that you did not believe the situation and the problem were in the same place. The problem was the lack of faith. And it is this you demonstrate when you remove it from its source and place it elsewhere. As a result, you do not see the problem. Had you not lacked faith that it could be solved, the problem would be gone, and the situation would have been meaningful to you because the interference in the way of understanding would have been removed. To remove the problem elsewhere is to keep it, for you remove yourself from it and make it unsolvable.
Yeah, so this is written a little abstract. I was thinking about placing my faith elsewhere. So we'll use the example of going out to dinner, specific. Well, we're going to this one restaurant, La Vieille Maison in Boca Raton. It was a mobile 5-star, so it's a really fine restaurant. So in advance, I know the food is good there. I know I'll have a good time. So I placed my faith in the dining experience. And chances are the laws of cause and effect will operate, and I'll enjoy the food and I'll enjoy the meal. Period. And the question is that enough for you? Or are you willing to allow your faith to rise higher to a meaningful experience that brings peace and truth and affects others in a meaningful way? So it's a different way of looking and approaching life's experiences. And lack of faith in the Holy Spirit's broader cosmic goal of bringing healing to all people, that is the factor that I want to call to your attention. Sandra mentioned this. How many sons of God does it take to heal in a situation? And it only takes one. And the question is, are you going to have a part to play in that or not? Are you going to sit on the sidelines and enjoy the food? Or are you going to, in addition to enjoying the food, participate in the goal of truth? Sandra?
And the nature of creation is expansion. And expansion means change. And one of the things that human beings hate the most is change. So this requires a very expansive mentality, and it's always expanding. It doesn't stay static. It's just always expanding. And that can be a little bit uncomfortable for us older people. But it keeps you young.
Ah, great insight. It may constantly change, but it keeps me young. That's really important to not lose sight of. David?
There is no problem in any situation that faith will not solve. There is no shift in any aspect of the problem, but will make solution impossible. For if you shift part of the problem elsewhere, the meaning of the problem must be lost, and the solution to the problem is inherent in its meaning. Is it not possible that all your problems have been solved, but you have removed yourself from the solution? Yet faith must be where something has been done and where you see it done.
So this is profound, and anybody that has a clear interpretation would be welcome. But there's this principle here that is true in universal principle that, okay, what is a problem? So let's the example we'll talk about is in relationships. It's not the only way we can define a problem, but that's the one that we'll focus on here. The solution to the problem is inherent in what it means. And you can't fully appreciate this until you take the Holy Spirit's view of what the relationship means. Because if you take the ego's view, you're not going to find your way to the truth by looking at what does this mean to my ego. But to the Holy Spirit, the relationship is destined to be holy. We're talking about a relationship between you and another. The outcome, the solution is perfect oneness, recognition of the holiness of each other. That's what it means. And the solution to that is inherent in its meaning, that they wrap around on each other. You cannot divorce one from another, although the ego will try. And the first thing that the ego does is it attempts to redefine the situation, not in terms of the Holy Spirit's plan and goal, but in terms of some temporary time-space set of values and meanings. So this then next idea involves a leap of faith. Is it not possible that all the problems in relationship have been solved, but your mind, your view of it, is standing on the outside of the solution, trying to find a solution from the outside? This would be starting from the ego's perspective, trying to find. I know that my mind is inclined to that view of trying to look for an answer from the ego's perspective. And I also know that I've never been successful, and that always the answer can be found by joining and adopting the Holy Spirit's perspective of a unified sonship, united in holy relationship. And you realize from that perspective, there is no problem. It's only a matter of perception. So all of this hinges upon your faith and trust in shifting perception from the ego's point of view to the Holy Spirit's point of view. Susie?
Yeah, I just had such a moment, because I know for me, and I know it's written about for a lot of people, sleep, falling asleep for me in the night has always been difficult. So my ego says. And the goal, so my ego says, is help me fall asleep so I can sleep. But what is the goal really? To have a peaceful, calm mind, and then sleep just comes naturally. So it has just really occurred to me that my ego's goal and what the Holy Spirit's goal, or whatever, I don't know if I'm using the right words, are very, very different, and I have to have faith. This is exactly, I have like tears in my eyes. I have to have faith that if I give this all over to the Holy Spirit, that to heal my mind, that's all. So the blocks of love are removed, and then sleep, so to speak, isn't really the goal. The healed mind and the peace is the goal, and sleep will just come because that's just naturally what happens. So my thinking has been very upside down, or my goal has been like the scorecard in David's golf. And now hopefully I will be able to have faith and help the Holy Spirit, and this will be solved by the Holy Spirit and not the ego. This can be applied to so many things. Well, everything. It's been a great class. Thank you.
Susie, thank you for expressing what you just did, because you allowed all of us to participate, to sit in on watching what a miracle looks like. And I think we can all relate that we thought the goal was to fall asleep. I don't think that's a shock to anybody. But you realize that that wasn't the Holy Spirit's goal for you, was to sleep. That goal came from somewhere else. The Holy Spirit's goal is to heal your mind. And if you join with her in faith with that goal, in fact, we're instructed to pray, Holy Spirit, I give you permission to heal my mind while I'm asleep. And then when we wake up, the instruction goes on to then thank her when we wake up for healing our mind. That shifts, that gives meaning to the situation, whereas before it was just about being unconscious for 6 or 8 hours. Now the situation has meaning. So you allowed us, Susie, to witness that miracle happening for you. And that is the power of being in a group. That is something that is irreplaceable. You have to be there for that. So that's as far as we're going to go in our reading today. There's more in this section, but we're going to respect people's times. And that was a big enough meal of spiritual healing there. That was meaningful and satisfying. More isn't necessary. More will come, but more isn't necessary at this time. Go savor the feeling of truth and of peace that comes about from the time we just had together. I want to thank you all for being a part. And whether we connect again between now and the first of the year, I want to wish everybody happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and just honor the light within each one of you. Namaste.
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 Hey, Jonaca,
Same to you.
Love you all.
next time when we do, you're going to probably do this paragraph in the next session too.
Yeah.
I found the last line that we'd read as absolutely fascinating.
Ah.
Yet faith must be where something has been done and where you see it done.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Take action.
That just really, really got my attention.
So
Because
finish
the interpretation of that is so open. And I was thinking, it took me back to when, early in my experience in 12 steps about faith, and turning it over to a power greater than yourself, and having faith that something outside of yourself is going to be able to help you be free of some kind of obsession or compulsion. And the example that was brought up by Joe and Charlie, who have these tapes, and he said, what is faith? And he said, well, faith is, my car's broken. And I talked to Joe over here, and Joe says, oh, my car had that same problem, and I took it down to Harry's shop down there, down the street, and they fixed it, and it worked great. And so I say to myself, Harry's car works great. I'm going to take my car down there. That's faith. That I'm going to take my car down there. My faith, that's faith on what he's saying. And then when my car is fixed, I see it done. And then I become willing to spread that same faith. Now, obviously, we're talking about it on another level. But for me, I needed a very concrete example to take the first steps in faith. because the ego has always taught me have faith only in yourself. So
Lovely. Well,
the sentence was terrific.
for those people that will be in session tomorrow that are not here today, I'll have to ask you to share that insight with them. All right.
I'm able to.
This has been good. Be safe, be well. Enjoy the journey.
Thank you. Thank you.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
Thank
Love
you.
you guys. Bye bye.
Oh, you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Namaste.